Today, I'm going to teach you a lesson from your Hornbill book, The Portrait of a Lady, written by Khushwant Singh. The Portrait of a Lady is the story of the author. He describes his relationship with his grandmother over the years. He pens down her daily activities and how she evolved as a character as time passed by. He explains her appearance, which helps create an image in the reader's mind. So, after reading this story or during your lesson, you are also going to recall your grandmother. It's a very interesting story. It's all about the grandson and the grandmother. The author talks about his grandmother. He had known her for the past 20 years and she had always been old and wrinkled. He was told that she was once young and pretty and had a husband. His grandfather portrait hung on the wall, in which he wore loose fitted clothes, a turban, and a long white colored beard that reached his chest. He also appeared very old, and the author thought that he was someone who could have many grandchildren, but not a wife or children. The author could never imagine that once his grandmother was young and pretty. He could not connect to this idea. She used to tell him that his cousins about her childhood memories, like the games she used to play as a child. They found these stories illogical and disrespectful because it was beyond their imagination to think that grandmother was once a child and played such games. They thought that their life stories were like the other moral stories which she used to tell them. So I have put some of the difficult words for you. You just go through it. So I'm going to explain you some of the words here. Revolting means unpleasant, absurd, illogical. Fables, fictitious stories with a moral teaching. Prophets means here saints. So now come to the next paragraph. His grandmother was short. Khushwant Singh's grandmother was short. Now I'm going to explain you the physical appearance of the grandmother. Was very short, fat, slightly bent because she was old in posture, and her face had lots of wrinkles. Wrinkles because of her age, old age. She seemed so old that she had been the same for the past 20 years. According to the author, she was beautiful but not pretty. She walked around the house in an awkward way, wearing spotless white clothes with beads of rosary hanging from one hand, and the other hand rested on her back for support. She had silver colored hair, white hair, which was not neatly combed and was disorganized. She was constantly chanting prayers. So, this shows that she was a pious lady and she believed in God. He compares her to the winter landscape in the mountains, which has a peaceful and calm feel. She was a live example of pure white peace emitting entity. Now, some of the words I have put and beads of rosary, you can see the picture here. So, it's a string of beads for keeping count of number of chants made of a religious prayer. Now, locks you might be knowing hair. scattered, disorganized, not combed properly. Now, the next paragraph. The author lived with her in the village. They were good friends. His parents left him with her to settle in the city. The author's grandmother used to wake him up every morning and get him ready for school. She would recite her morning prayers while she bathed and dressed him up, and he loved her voice but would not try to memorize a word of what she spoke. She would make his things ready like wooden slate, a tiny earthen ink pot, and a red pen. He would eat a thick stale chapati with butter and sugar spread on it. They both used to walk to school, and his grandmother carried stale chapatis with her to feed the village dogs. You can see the picture of the village dogs here. So they are just waiting for the grandmother to give them stale chapatis. As the years rolled, his grandmother would accompany him to the school as temple was attached to the school. And she used to visit the temple daily. On one side, he would sit on the veranda with other children, would sing the alphabet and prayers in the chorus. On the other hand, she would sit in the temple to read the scriptures, the holy books. After finishing, they would walk back home together. And as I told you, they used to meet the village dogs at the village door. They would follow them to their home, growling and fighting with each other for the stale chapatis that she fed them. When his parents got settled in the city, they called him, both of them. That was the turning point of his friendship with the grandmother. They shared the same room, but she no longer would give him company to his school. He started going to an English medium school, and a motor bus, that is the school bus, used to come to pick and drop him. You can just see the picture of the school bus here. There were no dogs in the streets whom she could feed as she did in the village. So she started feeding sparrows in the veranda of their house. So years roll down here means time pass. Distress, suffer from extremely sorrow, anxiety, or you can say pain. Now see what happened. As the years pass, the interaction reduced. The interaction between Khushwant Singh and his grandmother reduced. For some time, she continued to wake him up and would get him ready for school. She would ask him what he had learned in school that day. The scientific terminology and English words would made her unhappy. She used to get disturbed but because she was not able to understand what is taught there in an English medium school. As his new school never taught him about God and religious scriptures, this made her sad. She did not approve of such an education. When she came to know that he was getting music lessons, it disturbed her. According to her, music was indecent and it was an art of the beggars and prostitutes and not for those belonging to decent families. She didn't like that he learned music, so she stopped talking to Khushwant Singh. As the author went to the university, He had a room of his own. The common link of his friendship with his grandmother that they had when they shared the same room was changed now, and thus his friendship with her ended. She became more private and spent her whole day spinning wheel. You can see the picture of the wheel here. From sunrise to sunset, she would sit and silently recite her prayers. In the afternoon, she used to feed sparrows, birds. So I have put the picture of the birds here. You can just have a look. The birds would gather around her. Some sat near her, some on her legs, some on her shoulders, and few on her head. She never shooed them away, but always smiled. She was the happiest in that half an hour during the whole day. You can see the picture of the grandmother clad in a white sari, and you can see how lonely she is feeling. Hope you have understood the first part. Rest in the part 2. Thank you so much, dear students.